Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. Last week, we hosted Nick Angelis again. He came back to talk about self-pay and insurance and using the combination of those two in order to get the best benefits for your wellness. This week, it is just me solo. Kelsi is celebrating her birthday on a beach. So we will all send her all the birthday wishes and wish that we were there with her in this cold 30-degree weather that I'm in. This week, we are joined by Sabrina Lindner, and she is going to be talking to us about how being in alignment with your true self creates great well-being. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So give us a little bit of background and information on you and why you chose or brought this topic today, why you're so passionate about it.
Yes, so by profession, I'm a life coach, but I'm also a writer. My first book will be published this year, so I'm super excited about that. And my life basically led me to realizing that being in alignment with your true self is not necessarily easy, but it's something that really, really has a big impact on how we experience our life and how fulfilled we really feel every day when we wake up in the morning, when we go to bed at night. And I was a sales manager for a decade in the corporate world. And at some point, I just realized that most people wake up in the morning not being very happy. And I think there's a lot of talk around that. There's sort of a conscious revolution also going on where people think about these topics a lot more anyway. So when I was sent for a professional coaching training, it was like an eye-opener to me many years ago. And I was like, wow, this is such a powerful tool to just support a person to understand where they are, what their true self really is, and how they want to move forward from there in life. So, you know, the reason why I feel that's a very important topic for everyone is because if we live in alignment with our true self, we basically can never be fully happy. We might achieve certain dreams, we might achieve certain goals, but in the end of the day, when we go to bed or when we have a vacation and we sit somewhere on the beach, we still feel empty or dissatisfied. And that's a very, very scary feeling when that happens.
I love this topic so much because as a clinical social worker, as a therapist, I talk about this all the time. It is usually a pretty core root of a lot of dissatisfaction or mood symptoms or relationship issues. If you bring it down to the core, we're like, what are your core values? This is a misalignment of values, and that's why you're miserable. What do you need to do about that? Do you need to set a boundary? Do you need to make a job change, right? What makes sense for you? So I'm so excited about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, from my experience as a coach and also as a manager for many years, it is often that certain emotions are bottled up in a person. And many times people don't even realize that they have not processed a painful event in their life, a trauma that they carry around, some pain, some fears, often, you know, from childhood times even. And they have formed certain behavioral patterns around that and don't know that they just get stuck in the same circle over and over again, repeating the same story because they haven't dealt with what is inside of them. And the really shocking thing for me was also to see on my own body what symptoms can actually come about when we don't deal with those events, those pains, those emotions that we have bottled up. So for me, alignment with my true self also means dealing with that, because we can never be aligned with our values when we don't look at what we are really afraid of, what is really the pain that, you know, what caused that pain. Why are we getting stuck in the same unhealthy, toxic relationships all the time, or in the same job moments, you know, where we think we can move forward, but we are for some reason not moving forward. So there's so many things tied to that. And that makes it really powerful. The way you say it, it's sort of the root cause many times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gabor Mate. and his work
Yeah.
on the stress disease connection, but also trauma. And as you were talking, it was like the belief, like what he always asked, you know, what meaning did you make of that, right? So then a belief system that you've created. And I sometimes jokingly, but honestly, tell people all the time that we are all just little wounded children, most of us,
Mm,
unless you grew up in a bubble where everything was perfect for you. Um, Most of us are little wounded children walking around in adult bodies pretending like we know what we're doing. And when we don't heal, a lot of people think that they can just grow up and move on, and that was long ago, and I don't need to deal with that stuff now. But you're going to deal with it one way or the other. It's going to be how it's currently manifesting in these toxic relationships and you know, maybe substance abuse or
mhm.
things like that, or you're going to, you know, do the tough work of healing it. So can you
Yeah.
kind of talk about how you started to come unstuck from that cycle and this journey started for
Yeah.
you?
I mean, from my experience, my personal experience, but also the experience of people around me and especially my clients, is really that, of course, it is different for every individual. So fundamentally, as human beings, we obviously function in a similar way, but the experiences that we had, or how the pain, whatever is stuck inside of us manifests itself, is very different. And some people seem very functional for decades, but you know, when you look at the details, then that's when you realize something is not working. Or some people are very obviously not really in a good space, and you can see that right away because it's depression or other more obvious, I would say in quotes, symptoms. But getting unstuck really starts, from my experience, with stopping. Just stopping to be in the rat race, stopping to be in the routine that you have been all the years. Often it's decades that people get stuck in the same routine, but just saying like, hey, stop. Let me just take a look at what is currently going on here. Let me take a look at how I truly feel. And that's, from my experience, for most people, the most scary thing. And that's where it often also makes sense to get some support, because when we have bottled up emotions for so many years, that's when it can be quite a task to face them and to, you know, pull it all out and really see what is inside of us. But it's just the stopping part and acknowledging that something is not right. And from there, you can slowly unpack what is not right. You know, where am I currently, and why am I feeling this is not the kind of life I want to live? And what I usually do a lot with my clients is the dreaming exercise, where I really start to envision how my life should be. And I spend time every day dreaming. And you know, it's a fun exercise. It's not like the old school thinking about goals or some fixed objectives or some vision board that overwhelms you when you have it on the wall. It's just every day, take some time, just dream. How do I want to feel emotionally when I wake up in the morning? Do I want to be excited, or am I more like the person who looks for a calmer lifestyle? Do I want to be happy? Do I want to feel purposeful? Do I want to feel, I don't know, just like there's something new coming every day? You know, a human being is also very unique in that aspect, like what focus you would like to put there. But once you get clear on, okay, this is the kind of daily life I want to live, this is how I want to feel in my daily routine, then it starts getting easier to actually act around those emotions that you want to feel. Do things that make you feel them, even if it's just small things in the beginning, like some coffee routine, or you know, some exercising that really makes you feel better. And the more you dream and the more you start getting into those positive emotions, the more you can also now move into a space where you can say, okay, what's my real purpose? What do I really want to do with this life? Because I don't know what will happen afterwards. Let me just make sure that I have a great life now in the present moment. And you can just dream different dreams. And the most exciting one is really the one that you should follow and that you should again, small steps are enough. You know, it can take you maybe years to get to the final dream, but already just working towards it will make you feel more fulfilled, will make you feel more happy, more excited, because you are now clear on how you want to actually walk through your daily exercises, your daily routine at work, and so on. So that's what I feel, also from my experience with my clients, is very powerful, and also a very sustainable way of doing it, because lots of people have resolutions. Lots of people want to make a change, but then they don't manage to stick with the new patterns. That's why it's so important to actually go down to the feeling bit. And of course, what goes into it as well is like dealing with the trauma, you know. If it helps having a therapist or a coach by your side, then do that by all means. If it means do meditation every day, do that. You know, all the things that are good for you, you should actually start including into your life.
I'm just taking it all in. There's so like,
so much.
No, as you talk, it's like, it's good to hear, because there's so many great, I mean, my brain goes all the places as people, and we're having these beautiful conversations. And so I bounced around between a lot of things that I wanted to say, and it's all just blended together so nicely of how Kelsi, I know, is going to be excited to listen, because it's very much how we approach treatment and how our philosophy and how we feel about healing. But the theme that's coming along for me the most is embodiment. So especially in America, we are so disconnected from not only each other, but ourselves. And so no one, and the other thing is society doesn't teach us how to safely move through an emotion and regulate that and process it and get support and effectively communicate your needs, right? All of these things to prevent this from happening. And then you bring in mindful, again, like I said, it's all tied together. We're not mindful. If we could be more mindful and pay more attention and go through the fear that is sitting with difficult emotions to be able to process those, that's where the alignment comes, I think, is in that embodiment, because otherwise we're so fragmented that we're not truly ourselves. So
it's almost like, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just had this other thought, like when you said fragmented, that was very powerful, you know, because lots of people, and you speak about the American or the US society. I mean, I've lived in Kenya for most of my adult life, which is a totally, you know, different culture from where I grew up in Germany. And what I can say is that it's not only the US where people are not taught how to safely move through emotions. I think it's a general thing in many societies where mindfulness is not a part of the culture, and where, you know, running through let me put it in quotes, the stereotypical term of capitalist system is sort of, you know, we are running every day, we think we have to function, we think we have to be strong, and we think vulnerability in the sense of being ourself is actually a weakness, because then we can be attacked. That's what many people have in their minds when they think about, oh, I have to put this perfect picture out there. It's shifting a little, but you know what I learned living in Kenya, where most people really struggle day to day, have to be very creative to even have a meal to eat, is that the most powerful thing of embodiment is really being in the moment. And that's where the mindfulness really comes in, right? Because we don't know what the future holds. We cannot change the past. We can just acknowledge it and use it as fuel to move forward. But the present moment is really the most powerful, where we have the choices, we can take action, we can enjoy, we can laugh, we can cry if we have to. So, you know, all these things on dreaming, meditation, exercise, journaling, all those things that are out there really help us to put all these different fragments of us together into that whole beautiful thing. And that's a very powerful thing, to realize, oh, I'm fragmented. At work, I'm probably a different person as compared to how I am with my children or my friends or my partner. And once we really move into a state of being where we can be the same person everywhere, that's when we can achieve that happiness, you know, that sense of fulfillment when we wake up in the morning.
Yeah, it's interesting as you talk about this capitalistic trauma. It's I tell people that your body is your primal part of you is overactivated nearly all the time when you're out in the world, which shouldn't be. Your body shouldn't think that there's a tiger standing in front of you all the time when you're just,
Yes.
waiting to meet with your boss or coming home to have a conversation with your partner or sitting in traffic, right? Your body should not be activated like that. The cortisol that is being released and all of the stress hormones and when those systems become activated, your other systems, your digestive system, all your other pulmonary system, all those things get energy depleted from them to
Yes.
take into your stress response. And over time, that constant stress on your body can cause, chronic health issues, disease, cancer, all sorts of things. So I try to explain the crucialness of this to people often because it's in my experience, I've seen, and personally, it wasn't until I was brought to my knees where I finally listened to the voice that was trying to say, hey, slow down, listen, that's not right for you. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't feel good. And I've noticed that in my own work, especially, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I used to work in doing very short-term counseling with folks in doctors' offices. Where they may never really go to a therapist, but since the doctor introduced, we could do some brief work and then I could refer if needed. And seeing those charts, Sabrina, it was just one of the most shocking things for me of like the chronic health conditions, the amount of medication folks were on, and that they had seen so many providers and nobody asked, what happened to you? What have you been through? How do you feel about yourself? What are your relationships like? So I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but like I try to explain to people that not only is it beautiful for becoming, for almost like an ascension process, like if I think about Maslow's hierarchy, kind of getting, to the top there, being authentic self, but it truly is crucial to your health and wellness and longevity to heal and start to live in alignment and not have that friction.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that in most societies, let's go back to the US society, for example, you have this idea like, let's think rationally about this, or, it's all about the mindset, but that's not really true. It's all about how we feel. When fear takes over, which is a super strong emotion, as you just also described, like constantly there's something happening even in our system, in our body. When that takes over, then how we experience the world around us is colored by that. So once we start working on how we actually feel, and health, well-being is just such a crucial part of it, when we can take care of ourselves, that's when we can also feel it at that time. That combination is really super powerful. That's why we talk about it. That's why it's, if anyone is asking, yeah, but why always this repetition about well-being and health? It's a big part of how we can feel in the present moment. And the present moment is all that we have to actually create this life experience that we are looking for.
Okay, so I know I could talk about this all day, but we got to get wrapping up here because we're running out of time. I have a question about your coaching services. So we're always intrigued what that looks like because as therapists, we have our role and we do that therapeutic processing and the trauma work, whatever that's going on with them. How does a coach come into play there? What are things that a coach might be a good support for? How does that differ from somebody going to therapy for our audience to understand?
So coach is really a very strong accountability partner by your side if you want to make a change. So, lots of my clients, for example, also have therapy. So it complements a therapy experience very beautifully when it's done, excuse me, correctly, because a coach is someone who helps you to dream, to envision, to think forward, to start taking action even when you're scared in a very powerful way that creates that alignment and gets you even more unstuck. And it's more like the now what you deal with in the therapy, you know, maybe the trauma, and you're working on that, now creating the right steps forward in your life to make it the whole that you're looking for, you know, to basically free yourself from what is holding you back until now. So, you know, sometimes, or most of the time, what people are afraid of is really the most basic things. What are other people going to say? Am I good enough to actually live my dream? Am I good enough to be happy? Do I have the right to be happy? Do I have the right to say no? And all these topics a coach also picks up. And, you know, there are certain exercises that we usually do with our clients, or I usually do with my clients, to get rid of those fears, those negative thoughts, the self-talk and so on, and to actually do it in the reality, in the present moment, start changing the behavioral patterns. So what I have seen is that when a client combines therapy, for example, with a coaching, then the progress and manifesting the life that the person really wants to have happens quite quickly. And that's a beautiful thing. Because a coach is someone who doesn't judge, just like a therapist. A coach is someone who just holds the space for you lovingly, but also sometimes kicks your butt a little when you get stuck and you're scared.
Admittedly, I kick their butt a little too. I just maybe do it a little more gently. Depends on that relationship. There's some people that I've been working with for 3 years, you know, and we have that rapport to be able to say, hey, what are you doing here? Do you know what you're doing? Yeah, I love that. Thank you for explaining. And then what are like tangible, what might that coaching process look like for somebody? You know, is it like, you know, are you talking on the phone once a day? Is it an online program? Is it worksheets? What is it that they're doing with you? And then where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who absolutely loves the super tailor-made and focused on the individual approach. So I don't do groups, I just do individual coaching with clients. And most of my clients book a 3-month program where they meet me every 2 weeks, but they are connected with me on WhatsApp, and we talk like outside of the sessions as well, in case they get stuck or they get freaked out at some point, or they want to celebrate. Of course, that's also nice to do together. So most of the time it's 3 months, because then, you know, a change in your life is really visible and it's more sustainable after 3 months. But some people also just come for a 6-week program where they say like, hey, I want to just get down to dream, to know what my life should look like and start taking action super fast. So I don't want to do it for 3 months. Those are the 2 programs that I usually run with individuals. And yeah, I mean, I've seen just an uplift in every single person, which is so beautiful to have like, you know, when it's almost like people come out of their shell and get rid of the baggage and start living their life. And of course, not everything is perfect. There are still always ups and downs in our life, but how we are able to cope with them and how quickly we can get back to a great state of mind and great emotional state, that's really the difference. And starting to follow the dreams that we have had, but we have been afraid of, that's also a super empowering thing to do. Yeah, so that's how it usually looks like. And you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm very active. Sabrina Lindner, life coach. You can find me on Instagram, and I also release videos on YouTube. Sabrina Lindner Coach. You can find me there as well. And on my website, that's also Sabrina Lindner Coach.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your sharing, you know, your experience and what you do. We'll definitely make sure we link all of those ways people can find you in the show notes.
Thank you.
Any closing statement, anything any mantras or any maybe like, one-offs you might share so often with one of your clients or before we
would
close out
say
today?
the biggest thing, the biggest advice I really have is like enjoy the journey, enjoy this life. It's never that serious. Just take it a little lighter and make sure you move through every day with some enjoyment, and things will turn out for the better, definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. Everyone
Thank you for
tuned
having me.
everyone tuned in. Make sure you turn on your notifications, subscribe so you get latest updates on our episodes. Next week, we are going to be bringing a marketing friend of mine, Tiffany Lewis, to be talking about how she prioritizes her purpose in motherhood while she's running a business. So really excited to have her. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.